Hi, I'm Bob Humphrey with another tip, and today we're going to talk about buck sign. Finding buck sign and then how to hunt buck sign once you've found it. Okay, one of the most obvious and one of the most important types of buck sign that you can find out in the woods is a rub. And bucks rub for a number of reasons. Early in the season, in the late summer, early fall, when they're shedding velvet, they'll sometimes rub just to get that excess velvet off their antlers. Later, as the days grow shorter, and testosterone starts to build up in their system, they get more aggressive. They start to rub out of aggression. They start to rub to build up those neck muscles that they're going to need later on to spar and then ultimately to fight, possibly over who gets to breed a certain doe. So that's a few reasons that bucks will rub. Now, not all rubs are the same. You may find rubs on a field edge, on the edge of a food plot, and that may be an important sign, or it may not be. It may just be a place that a deer passes by occasionally or happened to be in a particularly aggressive mood when he found that tree and made that rub. What you want to look for is a series of rubs on a trail, on a line. Now you're starting to get an indication that that's a route that a buck, at least one buck, possibly several, travels on a somewhat regular basis when you can see those rubs one after the other over, say, 100 yards, 200 yards or so. Now, another thing that we can learn from these rubs is the direction of travel. If the tree is rubbed on this side and not the other, okay, that's a good indication the deer is going this way when he rubs it, obviously. But what are we looking at in the big picture? What's behind us and what's in front of us? If that's bedding cover and that's feed, then maybe that deer is leaving the feed in the morning, heading to bed. So this might be the direction of travel in the morning. If it's just the opposite, maybe the deer is leaving the bedding cover, if the rub was on the backside, and heading out to feed. Okay, so you might want to set up there in the afternoon. You might want to set up back there in the morning. Now, another type of buck sign that'll really get a deer hunter fired up is a scrape. Now, just like rubs, not all scrapes are the same. Around my home where I hunt, it seems like there'll be no buck sign or relatively little buck sign for several weeks, and then all of a sudden one night we get a good cold snap, and you go out the next day and there are scrape lines everywhere. It seems like every buck in the woods just went out and pawed the ground. Those are only so valuable because you hunt over those and you're probably going to get frustrated. You're going to find that for the most part those are never revisited. The ones you want to look for, particularly, are the ones that have an overhanging branch. That's a key to a scrape that's going to be used over and over, because in addition to pawing the ground and depositing urine in the scrape, the buck is going to rub his face, his preorbital glands, his forehead glands on that overhanging branch and leave a scent marker as a communication message to other deer. And younger bucks and even does will come in. They may not scrape the ground, but they'll use that licking branch. So a licking branch over a scrape is a good key for something that you might want to keep an eye on. Okay, hunting scrapes, as I already mentioned, it can be frustrating even on a good scrape, because the research says that most scraping is done at night. Most scrape tending is done at night. Most, but not all. I've taken several bucks who were literally standing in a scrape when I shot. But that's the exception rather than the rule. Still, if you want to hunt scrapes, you want to hunt pre-rut, before the does start coming into estrus. This is like a message system here. This is like a computer dating system where the buck posts a message, I'm ready, and oftentimes that may be 2 weeks to as much as a month before the does are ready. He's signaling he's ready to breed, and he's revisiting that message board to see if he's gotten any responses. And then all of a sudden the rut kicks in, the does start to come into estrus, and he no longer needs this. So you could be sitting there during the peak of rut and you're probably not going to have much action because the bucks are out getting theirs someplace else. So when it comes to buck sign, really rubs and scrapes are the two things you want to key in on. Okay, tracks, if they're really big, it's probably a buck, but despite what anyone else might tell you, there is no way that you can tell the sex of a deer simply by its track. The same for dropping. Some people see pellets and they say it's a doe, and they see a clump of pellets together and they say it's a buck. That's not true either. The size, the consistency of deer droppings is more a factor of the food that they eat. So concentrate on those rubs and those scrapes and hit them at the right time, early in the season before the rut, and then maybe later after the second rut, roughly 3 to 4 weeks after the peak rut, the does that haven't been bred will come into estrus again. That might be a good time to revisit those scrapes. That's about it for this time, but please check back again soon and often with the